So it's not only what we feed, but it's how we feed. So do we feed the hay on the ground? Do we give it free choice? Do we have horses on pasture 24 hours a day? Do we feed a lot of grain? Do we feed a little grain? So do we have enough water available? So this is our feeding management. How often do we feed?
Welcome to another equine-focused episode of the Pet Food Science Podcast, where we explore the science behind how we feed our horses. I'm your host, Dr. Alex Rankovich, and today I'm joined by Dr. Tanja Hess to talk about how equine behavior is influenced by feeding management. Dr. Hess is a veterinarian and professor in the Department of Animal Sciences at Colorado State University. Her research spans equine nutrition, exercise physiology, and metabolic disease, with a strong focus on how feeding strategies and dietary supplements influence health, performance, and recovery in horses. More recently, she's been involved in collaborative research, examining the relationship between nutrition, management, and equine behavior, particularly as it relates to welfare and well-being. Dr. Hess, welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you here, and I'm really looking forward to just chatting with you about this topic today.
Thank you for having me. So thank you very much.
Of course.
I'm excited to talk a little bit about that. People have horses and don't realize.
Mm-hmm. I think it's going to be a really interesting conversation because, to your point, I think we often, when we talk about nutrition, we often talk about it in terms of nutrients, I think, and what the horse is getting, but not necessarily how we're feeding those and how they're getting that food. Before we dive into it, though, could you start us off by talking a bit more about yourself, your background, and what originally drew you to studying and researching equine science?
Oh, gosh. Background. I knew I was going to be a veterinarian since I was a little kid. So I grew up in Rio, a big town in Brazil, so very urban. But I always was drawn to horses. So I had a good friend, an old German lady that taught me how to ride, and I cleaned stalls. So this is how it all started. So I graduated in 1990. As a veterinarian, worked as a resident on farms close to Rio, and then I pursued a master's. Dr. Jerry Gillespie, who is a professor, who was a professor at Kansas State, he gave a talk in Brazil, and he inspired me to pursue more studies with endurance horses and hydration. So I did some studies during my master's. I was limited by financing, but then my PhD was about electrolyte supplementation in endurance horses. So we conducted treadmill studies, research rides where we had several participants use different formulas. Then I got involved in working with insulin dysregulated animals. Our group at Virginia Tech, that's when I got a scholarship to go to Virginia Tech. And at Virginia Tech, we were one of the first studies looking at metabolic syndrome, actually. We looked at a herd with 150 horses, and we did baseline insulin and glucose, and with that, we were able to characterize what we call nowadays insulin dysregulation. This was in the early 2000s, so yeah. And I mean, at the time, we called it pre-liminitic syndrome, but it's what we know of equine metabolic syndrome, which are horses that are a little bit overweight and are prone to developing laminitis and have a high resting insulin levels. So when I joined CSU, I did some studies on omega-3 fatty acid supplementation, and we characterized the incorporation of those into muscle. And we also found out that the horses that were insulin dysregulated at the time had improved insulin sensitivity with the use of those fatty acids. So after that, I did some studies on exercising horses, omega-3 fatty acids, and inflammatory cytokines. And in the last 4 years, I've been involved with a grad student that now she's a postdoc that worked with behavior and nutrition. And it's interesting how much we didn't know that we harmed horses by managing them during feeding and eating. And nowadays we know much more, and we can improve the well-being of horses on how we feed them. That's a fast summary.
It's great. And it ends off in a perfect place. You've done so many different things, and it all kind of comes together in terms of, how do you feed those things, right? Not just what you feed, but how you feed too. So I think that's really important, because the way we manage these horses and the systems that we have isn't, what we would see them having evolved doing and having. And I think too that owners, they never mean to do any harm by their horses, right? Like everything that we do is well-intentioned, but when you don't know, you don't know until sometimes it's too late. So hopefully we can shed a bit of light on that today. Before we dive in though, we're going to talk about feeding management, but do you want to maybe explain what we are encompassing and what that all means when we say feeding management?
So it's not only what we feed, but it's how we feed. So do we feed the hay on the ground? Do we give it free choice? Do we have horses on pasture 24 hours a day? Do we feed a lot of grain? Do we feed a little grain? So do we have enough water available? So this is our feeding management. How often do we feed? So it is important because in nature, the best way to compare feeding management, and we make things that are easier for us, like feeding twice a day is easier for us. It's not the best for horses because horses are browsers and they graze up to 16, 18 hours a day. So their whole gastrointestinal tract has evolved to that type of eating behavior. So they need to eat because it's a behavior trait they have. It's not only to fulfill their nutritional needs. So, and if we don't feed it this way, horses end up developing the problems we know, such as gastric ulcers and colic. So
when we think about our modern feeding practices, how do these feeding schedules and feed availability influence behavior and these daily time budgets? Because, you're saying that if horses are provided with this, they'll graze for 16 to 18 hours, but that's not the reality a lot of them have when they're being managed in a lot of these systems that we have.
So one of the first behaviors, not in stalls, if you have them in dry lots, if there is competition or if they have limited availability of feed, they get more aggressive towards each other. And they also, one of the first things that happen is they engage in coprophagia. So they eat their own manure because they have the need to be grazing during that time. They have a physiological need to do that. It's not only to fulfill the nutrient requirements. If you substitute your hay or pasture for pelleted feed, for example, they'll spend less time eating, and then they have problems happening, So this is one of the first things that happen. Horses will overeat, so for those who have problems with overweight and easy keepers, they can use a hay net with small holes, and the horses can spend several hours eating, and they'll be fulfilling their needs for the 15, at least half of the time eating of the day. So we call it time budget, and at least 50% of the time they will eat. And it's intermittent. They don't eat 12 hours and fast 12 hours. They eat, rest, stand, drink water, interact with their peers, and then they continue. Another aspect is stalls. They should be able to interact with each other. Horses are highly social, and they need to have interaction too, and it will affect their well-being if they cannot interact with their peers. So, yeah.
And in regards to, you had mentioned, of course, that not allowing them to do some of these natural behaviors and express these time budgets can result in problems. So when you're talking about problems, is it specifically the development of diseases, or what is encompassed in those problems?
So problems like if we know that if you fast a horse more than 6 hours or higher, they develop gastric ulcers because acid production is constant and saliva only is produced when they're chewing. Then aggressiveness increases, and some of the horses, they develop stereotypic behaviors like weaving in the stall, wood chewing, or licking repeatedly place. So these are some problems that happen. So abnormal behaviors are considered to be like something that the horse would do and they try to mimic, such as coprophagia, for example. But stereotypic behaviors are repetitive behaviors that don't have any function, like cribbing, for example, weaving. These are some stereotypic behaviors that can develop. And the main causes of a lot of abnormal and stereotypic behaviors are just the fact that they cannot behave as in nature. They cannot fulfill their natural eating behaviors. So we as horse managers, owners, veterinarians, we need to try to mimic their natural behavior as much as possible.
And what are some ways in which barn managers, barn owners can try and allow horses to have the opportunity to express these behaviors?
Yeah, as I said, it has been shown that keeping hay on the ground is the best. It's not the best for waste, correct? But at least having hay nets will allow them to not waste the hay and have it with smaller mashes, have it available for several hours a day. If you feed limited amount of hay and you go in like at 11 p.m. and there's no hay left over, it means that the horses will be fasting until the morning meal. So you can try to slow down their eating and reducing the waste by putting in hay nets, or there's some feeders that are lower and they have some screens over them and horses have to pull the hay out too. So different ways to mimic that natural behavior. And stall architecture should be such as horses having a way to interact. And preferably, you would keep them outside with their peers, I was talking to someone, it was a Facebook observation. There was a stallion, and he was by himself, and he developed a stereotypic behavior. As soon as she put the stallion outside and he could see other horses, he stopped that behavior. So
yeah, I think it's important to remember, they're herd animals at the end of the day. And although that maybe comes with some inconveniences in terms of managing them as companions and as domestic animals, it's who they are. Like they need their buddies and they need to see other horses and interact. And
ideally, you would have more than one source of hay. It's been shown that even in the stalls, they try to mimic the behavior in pastures. So they walk, eat, walk, eat, walk, eat. You could have several hay nets spread over in the stall so that they can walk around, and they'll pick up what's on the ground too.
Yeah, and I know, and I guess the track systems outside, I know that's becoming a much more popular thing, at least up here. And what are your thoughts on those? Have you seen a lot of those, or are you seeing those incorporated?
I don't think we have enough here. We currently have a student doing a PhD study on it. Hopefully she'll be able to publish soon. Of course, horses move much more. She's working on the behavior part, but the tracking system allowed them to walk more, and even compared to a pen, because in the tracking system you can spread the hay out at several spots, and then you put more horses in, there's less competition, because if there's limited amount of food, they get aggressive too. If there's only one source and it's too small of an area for the access of that food source, they might get aggressive too. So.
And apart from the behaviors and stereotypies, is there diseases as well that feeding management can contribute to if it's not being...
I mean, all of them. Colic?
Yeah. It doesn't take much, I guess, for horses, right?
No. I mean, it's known that you feed extra grain, you predispose them to colic. And nowadays, it's recommended that the horse at least eats... They calculated in grams per kilogram of body weight, but it's about 1.5% of the body weight as forage. And then the rest, if you calculate 2% of the body weight as a dry matter, as an intake, how much does a horse eat? They have to have the maximizing their forages, and problems will be reduced significantly.
Like you were saying, if feeding management isn't properly, isn't horse first, I guess is the best way to say it. We're seeing these behavioral issues. We're potentially seeing clinical diseases. Do you think it's fair to say that behavior might often be like a first sign or early indicator that feeding management isn't well aligned with the horse's physiology, even before the clinical disease?
Oh, yes. We know that horses they change their behavior before they show a clinical sign of a disease. Absolutely. Yes.
Well, I noticed it was Dr. Ben Sykes, who we've had on the podcast. I recently saw a post of his where he had said that for horses that are diagnosed with ulcers, over 85% of them are diagnosed because of behavioral changes, which I thought was really interesting.
Yes, this is to the owner's pinpoint their behavior. Yeah.
And I think
some horses eat. Yeah, some of them eat and yawn, because they have stomach pain. Really, their stomachs hurt because they have ulcers. Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought what was interesting too is that he made a comment too that it's the behavior that presents first, and sometimes even when the ulcers are treated, like some of these behaviors will even persist afterwards.
Yeah, because it takes a while for the healing too, and sometimes of ulcers are still hard to heal. The glandular ulcers are harder to heal. Researchers are still working on that because the regular medication doesn't always heal them. You need to change management. And
I think the other, the thing that becomes a little challenging too is that sometimes people can manage behavior within their own facility and their own farm, manage feeding. But for professionals who have performance goals, who are going off property, who are showing, how do you balance those performance goals with the behavioral and physiological needs of the horse?
Yeah, it's like there's a big competition venues. I think the license to operate discussion is big. So horses in their venues should be able at least to see each other, and they still should try to maximize their forage intake and have enough time for them to eat, relax. And lights should be off too. That's another big issue, because horses need the darkness to be able to rest. So yeah, they're even using some goggles that make them darker so that the lights from a venue doesn't bother them. Yes.
But yeah, you're right. I think, that's not a point that everyone considers always is the lights at some of these big facilities, right? I think, forage might be one that, everyone keeps an eye on, but some stuff like that does skip the radar a little bit and get missed.
Yes, yes. And then, travel stress itself, it's a big one too. If possible, stop every 4 hours, have the horse get off, give forage, water, and have a buddy too. So it helps a lot if possible. So.
Have there been a lot of studies looking at time budgets between horses that are stalled versus those that have 24/7 access?
Yes, there has been some studies, yes. If they don't have enough access to forage, they'll stand looking outside. They like the horizon, but I mean, they develop a lot of problems. They might be, you look at the body condition score, they're well nourished, but they're not happy. They develop stereotypic behaviors pretty fast, actually, and abnormal. They eat bedding too. That's another thing that happens. So if they have limited food amount with them, yes, absolutely. There's a big difference. I mean, horses walk, eat, walk, eat, walk, eat. So this is their natural grazing. So in nature, they will travel from 10 to 100 miles. So on the studies from Dr. Sue McDonald, she put pedometers on the ponies, and one of the ponies traveled 100 miles on a day. So impressive, yes.
Well, and it's just, you think about that too. And I mean, my gosh, the amount of land you would need to, like, the way we manage our horses.
And ponies, imagine that. Yeah, ponies are the big ones, because
it definitely puts things into perspective. And I think too that, some people will say like, oh, but I exercise my horse. And so he can be stalled because I exercise him. But once you think about how much they're truly exercising and walking, if given the opportunity, to your point, it doesn't add up.
Yes.
And I think too that if you're riding in an arena versus outside, having big space, and I think that
and when you're working horses, they need days off, and they need a different type of exercise too. If you're only working in the arena, they get really bored too. So you should incorporate some outside riding. So
has there been, I know this isn't really necessarily focused on feed management, but just because we're talking about it, has there been a lot of work looking at how exercise scheduling and type of exercise affects?
No, we know that horses that exercise 5 or more days a week are prone to, it has been associated to glandular disease, glandular ulcers. This is what we know. So, yes. But it's just important to have them be able to walk around. It's not necessarily just high intensity exercise or conditioning, but they need their own time.
Yeah, with their buddies. Yeah, very. It definitely puts things into perspective, right? Because to your point, the way that they should be managed and what they need, it isn't the most convenient for a lot of people. And up here in Canada, like I have my horse out, she's on 24/7, and it's really, really hard to find outdoor board up here because no one wants to manage these horses in the winter. Like no one wants to go outside and feed them or put round bales out in the winter, which, you understand, but at the same time, you're like, well, let's balance the horse versus.
Yeah, but then you have in a stall, in a pen, you have much more work cleaning up. So,
I totally agree.
Put a round bale out. So.
Yeah, no, I agree. But it's, it's challenging. And I do think it's a bigger conversation that needs to be had. I think hopefully by doing stuff like this and having yourself doing this research and speaking, that we can try and get this message out to more people and just help them really understand why it matters from a behavioral standpoint, from a health standpoint, it just everything, right? So
in a study we did here, we compared free choice hay with screened round bales with automatic opener that.
Okay, yeah, like the automatic feeders.
Yes, that open and close. So horses on free choice gained weight, and we wasted a lot of hay, obviously. And here we have a lot of wind, so it flies away too. Horses on the screen feeders, and it was not a very small it was like a 2-inch or a 3 to 4 centimeter mesh or 5 centimeter mesh. They didn't gain weight. They had the same weight as the horses on the automated feeders. But the ones on the automated feeders were the ones who showed some aggressive behavior. And even some horses traced the others around not to let them eat the ones lower on their totem behavior, because there is the hierarchy too. So it's important to think about spreading food out too, or have a big enough round bale area so that all horses can access it. So yeah.
And I think people often forget about water too, and water troughs as well, right?
Oh, very important.
Yeah. So
very important. Yes.
Covers both, absolutely.
Water is something needs to be available all the time. But even if they have one place to drink, they'll go and drink. And even if they can make up for their drinking if they go every 12 hours, they'll be able to. So, but don't let your water freeze, correct? And have good quality water too. So that's important too.
Yeah, it's a lot to think about when it comes to managing horses. It's not easy, but they usually make it worth it. So.
Oh yes.
It's time for our famous 3.
Kemin Nutrisurance is compelled to provide safe and delicious ingredients to improve our pets' food so they can have the best quality of life. Every day, they deliver specialized expertise, innovative products, and unrivaled support through the pet food and rendering value chain. From oxidation control and food safety to palatability and nutrition, all the way through a suite of tailored services that support you from start to finish, we ensure you're getting the most from Kemin ingredients. Kemin is compelled by curiosity to ensure pets around the world are living happy and healthy lives.
Well, Dr. Hess, thank you so much for joining us. I think this was a really great discussion on how feeding, behavior, and well-being are all connected, more so than I think most people often acknowledge. I think there is a lot more we could have delved into, but I think this was a really fantastic summary of all of sort of the key points and key issues and things that people really need to consider. Before we let you go, though, we will wrap up with just sort of a few final questions that are part takeaway, part personal to get to know you a little bit better. So for the first question, for those listening, if you could just highlight 1 or 2 feeding or management changes that you think make a big impact on equine behavior or welfare, well-being, what would they be?
I think if you have meal feeding, you feed twice a day, you should incorporate a hay net with the food. And people might say, oh, it causes dental problems. No, it doesn't. Studies have shown that there's no dental problems. So try to put more than one hay nets and try to let them be social. And I believe maximize your forage intake, reduce your grain. And I think horses will be much happier. If you can turn them out, that's perfect.
Yeah, I agree. And I like that those management changes can be done in existing facilities. You don't have to do a big overhaul. It's very doable regardless of the facility that you have.
And they're not that expensive. You have to replace your nets. They get torn apart, of course, but it's worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and then following up on that, if someone wanted to learn more about this topic, is there a book or a resource or a paper that you would recommend to them?
Yeah, there's feeds and feeding books for horses. I like the clinical equine applied, but that's very technical. That's me.
That one's come up a lot on this topic, on this podcast.
The Horse Magazine brings up new articles now and then, and they usually summarize scientific articles coming out. I like it as a source. It's a good source.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. We haven't had that one in the horse yet, because you're right that they will summarize existing papers and then they'll link the paper if you do want to read more or explore in a bit more depth. And
it brings the information a little bit more down to a layman's level.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. And then finally, if you could own any horse, real or fictional, past or present, who would it be and why?
I mean, I like my horse, so I adopted the mare from a rescue facility, Colorado Horse Rescue. She was a little bit trained, and I'm an endurance rider too.
Okay,
so
very cool.
I'm building her up, and she's up to 50-mile races. So I'm very happy.
What kind of horse is she?
She's an Arabian cross.
Okay, lovely.
And she's kept out on a pasture, so I pasture board. So
there you go, hearing it right from the expert herself.
Throughout the year, I just go and feed them vitamin mineral balancer on a daily basis. So yeah.
What's her name?
Blue.
Oh, cute. Very cute. I like that a lot. That's a good answer. I'm sure she would be happy to hear that you said her and that you wouldn't trade her in for another horse.
No. I like her. It's nice when you can make up your horse. It's you building up. Horses build trust with you, so they trust you and you trust them. So
yeah, well, and I think too, even when we consider our on paper perfect horse, I often don't think that we know what we need until the horse finds us, right? And then you're like, oh, actually, this is the horse I needed, not the horse that I wanted.
Yes, exactly.
Well, perfect. Well, thank you, Dr. Hess, so much for joining us again. It was a pleasure having you on the podcast.
Thanks for inviting me, and thank you all.
Of course. And to everyone listening, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Pet Food Science Podcast. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please be sure to subscribe for more discussions on equine and companion animal nutrition. Dr. Hess, thank you again. It was great having you here.
Thank you.